Aarti, I would like to ask you this question, which is, I think, important for all age group, parents as well as children also. It's all about food. The kindergarten parents complain about them not eating enough or being fussy eaters. The older parents have other problems. Can we touch base on that and can you help us?
So as a culture, everything is built around food in India. If you notice, whether it's a festival, somebody coming home, etc., everything is built around food. As a result, what happens is, right from the beginning, there is an obsession with food in some ways. We believe that, if we've fed the child a lot, we've been a good parent. Anything the child is crying for is always for a feed or for a meal and things like that. So children start actually getting an aversion because every need cannot be met by food. And that also has detrimental effects later on, which I'll come to. So having said this, the ideal way to start is to start in the most simple ways of, introducing one aspect of food, as the child turns 6 months and so on, get the enzymes to, sort of kick in and build on that. And by 9 months, from the psychological angle, by 9 months, the child should have been exposed to all tastes. The tongue basically needs to have an exposure for all taste. Why 9 months? Because till 9 months, the child can only swallow. At 9 months, they start spitting. So what will happen, whatever you leave on their tongue, they will try to play with the new skill, not because they dislike it, but because they want to spit it out, because it's a new skill, just like we have a new toy and we play with it, the child will do this. And many parents wrongly interpret this as though the child doesn't like that food. So you give bitter at that time, child spits it out, and then you assume that he'll not eat any bitter food ever. This kind of thing. So this is why it's important for us to understand, engage the child during the meal without a screen, have a lot of conversation. Where I come from, the child will be shown crows and squirrels and, lots of aspects of nature and moon and the songs built around it, because that was the bonding, the safety aspect involved in that. No matter how old a person, at 20 minutes, the stomach full signal is sent from the brain. Even if the stomach is not full, the signal is sent from the brain. Beyond that, whatever you force is actually going to override the brain's ability to understand the stomach full, which is what is the biggest problem in India, because I've seen mothers trying to feed the child for 1 hour, 1.5 hours sometimes, walking around the whole house, and then finally, playing something on a screen and force feeding. So all this contribute towards the fussy eater, because we have not helped the child understand this sensation in my body is hunger. This hunger sensation is met by food, and this is stomach full and I have to stop at this time. These 4 signals, when they are not suppressed, or when they are constantly suppressed and they are not understood properly and responded to effectively, lead to a fussy eater who says every time that bowl of food comes, create a tantrum so that you will not be force fed. This is the basic underlying fact. So how do I change this? Get your child to be as physically active as possible, because once the body is active, you are naturally changing the metabolism and it will make them feel hungry, usually in about 3.5 hours. No unnecessary snacking. Let the child be hungry for at least 3 hours, and then when you give the meal and stop at 20 minutes, they realize that there is a routine involved. In the younger ages, you will also have food fads, where they will go into one food item for several weeks, several months, and then stop eating that completely. That's also quite normal, and not to create any problems for the parent. If they're going through a food fad, you can encourage the food fad sometimes, and then also let them know, I've given you this for one meal, the next meal we'll have this. Communicate it, but not as a threat. In the older age groups, food again becomes a problem, because as the hormonal changes start and as the growth spurt, there is a sudden need for higher calorie food, and you'll see the higher need for the fried foods and the unhealthy foods and things like that, which is something that parents find very difficult. In the current, social media driven, filters driven culture that our teenagers are growing up in, they need to have the perfect body. So you have these extremes of children who starve themselves, who miss meals, etc. The simple rule is for parents to understand that they can't body shame their children. Even casual remarks like, I think you put on weight and things like that are not really something that I would encourage. If you are concerned about your child's weight, introduce fitness. Don't make them starve, because a growing child does need food. The second area that I would focus on is where we feel that children are emotionally eating. So they don't have emotional regulation, they've been eating unnecessarily or overeating or resorting to comfort food and things like that. In that case, as a parent, you may need to seek professional help sometimes or sit down and work with them on emotional regulation. The third area is where children themselves have absolutely no ways to build friendships, deal with boredom, deal with the challenges, pressures, things like that, where they go into food as an obsession because it becomes an addiction, right? An addiction comes because I want to disconnect from reality. So considering this, these are two areas that I would ask parents to immediately seek professional help, not necessarily through medication but through counseling, because somewhere the child's emotional system is saying, I'm feeling overloaded, I don't know what to do about it, help me. So it has to be looked at as a red flag that can be handled effectively through counseling and empathetic support. So I think by and large these would be the rules that we would follow around food.
Nice, Aarti. Thank you. I'm sure all parents of all age groups would be happy to listen to this. Very useful. Thank you.